I heard my daughter screaming before I saw her. She was tied to a tree, crying loudly, "Dad, help me!" And in front of her, HOA Karen sat on a roaring road roller, her face full of anger as she pushed the machine forward. "You kids break my rules. This is what happens," she shouted. The road roller rumbled closer, shaking the ground. My daughter cried louder, terrified. I ran toward them from the gate, yelling, "Stop, Karen!" But Karen didn't stop. She slammed the lever forward, laughing like she owned the street. She thought I was just another neighbor. But what she didn't know, I'm the police chief. Before you hear what happened next, tell me where you were watching from. And don't forget to follow for more real HOA stories where justice always wins. The scream cut through the morning air so suddenly that I dropped everything in my hands. It wasn't a normal cry. It wasn't surprise or annoyance. It was a terrified, shaking scream that told me my daughter was in danger. I sprinted across the yard, pushed the back gate open, and the moment I stepped outside, my entire world stopped. My daughter, my little girl, was tied tightly to the thick trunk of the old oak tree. The ropes around her wrists dug into her skin as she struggled and cried. Her cheeks were wet with tears, her hair stuck to her face, and her voice trembled as she sobbed, "Dad! Dad, please help me!" Her fear hit me like a punch to the chest. And then I saw who was behind it, HOA Karen. She was perched on top of a massive road roller, the type city workers use to flatten asphalt. The machine thundered beneath her, sending vibrations through the ground with each heavy rumble. Sunlight flashed across the giant steel drum at the front, making it look like a metal monster crawling forward. Karen wore her bright red dress, the one she loved to parade around in when she thought she had authority. Her blonde hair blew wildly in the wind. Her face was twisted with anger, her jaw tight, her eyes burning with self-righteous fury. She gripped the machine's controls like she was steering a weapon. "You people think you can ignore my rules?" she shouted over the roar of the engine. "Not in my HOA!" Her voice echoed through the street, sharp enough to pierce through the noise of the machine. My daughter sobbed harder, pressing her back against the tree, begging for me with every breath. "Dad, she's coming! Please help me!" I ran faster, my heartbeat pounding so hard it blurred my vision. "Karen," I yelled, "stop that machine!" But Karen didn't stop. Instead, she leaned forward on the controls. The road roller jerked ahead, its engine letting out a deep, rumbling groan as it moved closer to my daughter. The earth vibrated beneath my feet. Dust lifted around the wheels. The steel drum rolled over a branch, crushing it instantly. Karen finally looked at me, and she smiled, a cruel, triumphant smile. "Oh, look who finally showed up," she shouted. "Daddy's here. Too bad he's late." She lifted her chin with pride, acting like she owned the entire neighborhood. "You think you can break HOA rules and get away with it?" she screamed. "Your daughter drew on my street. That's vandalism. This is the consequence." My daughter's sobs grew louder, more desperate. Her tiny body trembled uncontrollably as she twisted against the ropes. "Dad, please," she cried, "I'm scared." I pushed myself harder, my lungs burning, my fists clenched at my sides. Nothing else existed. Not the sun, not the houses, not the neighbors frozen behind their blinds. Just my daughter and the machine rolling toward her. My wife shouted behind me, her voice cracking with panic. "Stop her! Please!" Karen ignored her completely. "You should have controlled your kid," she yelled. "If you won't teach her to follow the rules, then I will." The road roller moved closer, its shadow stretching across the grass like a threat. My daughter squeezed her eyes shut, crying even louder. "Dad, hurry!" I reached the final stretch, my boots hitting the ground so hard each step felt like thunder. I was close enough to see every expression on Karen's face. Anger, arrogance, twisted satisfaction. She truly believed she had won. She truly believed she had absolute power. She truly believed she was untouchable. But then her eyes shifted downward, to my belt, to the badge hanging there. The sunlight struck it perfectly. Her smirk faded. Her expression froze. Her entire face drained of confidence. "No," she whispered. Her hands loosened on the controls. Her breath caught in her throat. For the first time, Karen looked afraid, because she finally realized what she had done. She finally understood who she was threatening. The child she tied to that tree. The child she terrified. The child she nearly put in front of a moving machine was the police chief's daughter. And I had just arrived. It was the kind of morning when nothing should go wrong. My daughter sat on the edge of our driveway, her box of chalk open beside her. She dipped her fingers into the colors and dragged them along the pavement, humming softly. She drew circles, stars, stick figure people, and tiny flowers that looked like splashes of sunshine. Every few minutes she would lean back, admire her work, and give a proud little smile. Her world was simple. Her happiness was simple. Her drawings were simple. But the one person who hated simplicity more than anything was HOA Karen. Karen had stepped outside earlier, angry for no reason, like she woke up fueled by frustration. She stood beside her perfect lawn, her arms crossed, her face tight. Her eyes narrowed, scanning the neighborhood like a security camera searching for violations. Then she saw the chalk. Her jaw clenched, her grip on her clipboard tightened, and she muttered something to herself, something sharp, something bitter. She took a few stiff steps toward the street, then stopped, then stared harder. She saw my daughter's bright drawings, her little hands moving peacefully across the pavement. Karen's face twisted as if she were witnessing a crime. She marched toward our driveway, her heels thudding against the pavement with aggressive purpose. My daughter was too focused on drawing a giant blue heart to notice the storm coming toward her. My wife stepped outside, holding her cup of tea. She smiled at our daughter for a moment, then froze when she saw Karen's expression. Karen stopped at the edge of the driveway, staring down at the chalk artwork with disgust, as if the colors offended her personally. "What is this?" Karen snapped, her voice cutting the air like a blade. My daughter looked up, confused. "It's a heart. And a flower," she said softly. Karen scoffed loudly. "A heart? A flower? On my road? Do you have any idea how this affects neighborhood standards?" My wife stepped forward quickly. "Karen, she's playing. It's just chalk. It washes off in minutes." Karen ignored her completely. She pointed at the drawings like she was pointing at something toxic. "This is graffiti," she said. "This is defacement. This is a violation." My daughter blinked. "But I was just drawing." Karen crossed her arms. "You broke HOA policy. Children cannot draw on HOA pavement." My wife frowned. "This isn't HOA pavement. It's the edge of our own driveway." But Karen wasn't listening. She lifted her clipboard and scribbled fast, her handwriting almost stabbing through the paper. "This is a fine," she said triumphantly. My wife stepped forward. "You can't fine a child. Stop being ridiculous." Karen glared at her with an intensity that made our daughter shrink back. "She broke the rules," Karen said, emphasizing every word like she was reading a verdict in court. "And children who break rules must be corrected." Then Karen bent down suddenly and grabbed my daughter's arm. My daughter jerked back, startled. Mom, help!" My wife grabbed Karen's wrist. "What are you doing? Let her go!" But Karen pulled my daughter harder. "Your child needs discipline, and clearly you're not giving it." My daughter whimpered, tears forming. "I didn't do anything wrong. Please stop." But Karen was too consumed by her own twisted sense of authority. Neighbors peeked from windows. Some whispered cautiously. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Everyone saw the madness, but no one stepped outside. Karen had scared them for years with threats, fines, and false rules. "Come with me," Karen demanded, yanking my daughter toward the street. "You will learn how to behave in this neighborhood." My wife ran after them. "Karen, let her go. She's just a little girl." Karen didn't even turn around. "She's a rule breaker. This is the HOA's responsibility." My daughter cried louder, stumbling as Karen dragged her across the pavement. Mom, please." Her small hands reached back desperately, trying to grab my wife's fingers, but Karen pulled her faster. When they reached the oak tree, Karen forcefully turned my daughter so her back faced the trunk. "Stand still," Karen ordered harshly. My daughter sobbed, shaking. "I don't want to, please." Karen pulled a thick rope from her oversized bag, the bag she used to carry HOA equipment. My wife gasped. "Karen, no, are you insane?" Karen wrapped the rope around my daughter's wrists and tied them behind the tree. My daughter cried harder as the rope tightened, pressing against her skin. "You can't just tie a child to a tree," my wife screamed. "She's terrified." Karen didn't care. "Children like her need structure," she said. "They need to learn consequences. I am doing what you should have done. My wife moved forward again, trying to untie the rope, but Karen blocked her, raising her clipboard like a shield. "Touch the rope," Karen warned, "and I'll fine you every day for the rest of the year." My wife froze in shock and fury, tears forming in her eyes. Our daughter cried louder, "Mom, help! It hurts!" The sound echoed down the street. It was the kind of cry that tears at a parent's soul. Karen stepped back, satisfied. There. She stays until she understands her mistake. My wife glared at her. "You're out of your mind." "She did nothing wrong." Karen smirked. "She drew on my pavement." But then something changed in Karen's eyes. She turned her head slowly. Her gaze landed on something big. The road roller. A massive construction machine parked nearby by the city workers, its engine key hanging in the ignition, its steel drum gleaming in the sunlight. Karen smiled, a dangerous, chilling smile. My wife felt her heart sink. "No. Karen, don't even think about it." But Karen was already walking toward the machine. Her heels hit the pavement hard. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. She climbed onto the massive vehicle and gripped the metal handles. My daughter screamed, "Dad, help me!" And at that exact moment, I heard her. I bolted from inside the house toward the gate. My daughter's cries grew louder. The road roller's engine roared. My wife cried my name. Karen still didn't know. She had no idea. The child she was threatening was the daughter of the police chief, and I was already running toward them. The moment Karen tied the last knot around my daughter's wrists, something in the air shifted. The calm suburban street that usually felt warm and welcoming suddenly turned cold, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. My daughter whimpered against the tree, trying to pull her hands free, but the rope was too tight for her little fingers to escape. She turned her head toward my wife and cried louder, her voice hoarse from calling for help. "Mom, please untie me. Please." My wife rushed forward again, desperate to loosen even one knot, but Karen stepped in front of her, blocking her path like a guard protecting her territory. "Don't touch her," Karen snapped. "You'll make things worse for your family." My wife's voice shook. "She did nothing wrong." "You're hurting her." Karen's eyes blazed with a frightening mixture of fury and pride. "I am enforcing the rules," she said coldly. "That child is out of control. Someone has to teach discipline in this neighborhood." My daughter struggled again, tugging at the rope until her arms trembled. Her breaths grew short and fast. She looked around desperately, searching for me, for anything familiar, for any sign that someone was coming to save her. But I wasn't there yet. Not yet. My wife's hands shook with helplessness. "Please, Karen." "Let her go." Karen didn't respond. Instead, her gaze shifted slowly to the enormous road roller parked just a few yards away. The massive machine stood silent, the sunlight gleaming off its steel drum. It looked like a sleeping giant, harmless as long as no one touched it. But Karen's stare locked on it like she was seeing a solution. A twisted, dangerous solution. My wife followed her eyes and felt her knees weaken. "No, no, Karen, don't. Don't even think about it." Karen tilted her head, a slow, unsettling smile forming at the corner of her lips. "I just want to teach her not to deface community property," she said, her voice low and disturbingly calm. "It's simple. Actions have consequences." My daughter heard the tremble in her mother's voice and cried harder. "Mom, I'm scared, please." The oak tree's leaves rustled above her as if the wind itself was warning of what was coming. Karen walked toward the machine with deliberate steps. Each footstep hit the pavement with a cold certainty, as if she believed there wouldn't be consequences for her actions. My wife ran behind her, pleading desperately. "Stop, Karen. Please stop. She's a child." Karen climbed onto the road roller, gripping the handles with both hands, ignoring the shouts behind her. She looked down at my daughter tied to the tree. Her face didn't soften. She didn't hesitate. She didn't see a terrified child. All she saw was a rule she believed was broken. My daughter shook her head violently, trying to scream louder through her tears. "No! No, please! Dad, help me!" Karen reached for the ignition key. The engine was silent now, but the moment it started, everything would change. My wife shouted again, her voice cracking, "Karen, don't start IT!" Karen didn't turn around. Her fingers curled around the key. My daughter's screams echoed through the street, bouncing off the houses, reaching every doorstep, every window. Where were the neighbors? Watching, frozen, scared of Karen, too afraid to step outside and stop her. Karen twisted the key. The road roller shook, its engine coughing awake. My daughter flinched at the sound, twisting desperately against the ropes. My wife dropped to her knees beside the tree, trying to keep her voice calm for her daughter even though fear trembled in every word. "It's okay, I'm here, Dad's coming. He'll get to you. Just hold on." But my daughter was terrified. "Mom, I can't break the rope." She tugged again, her wrists turning red. Karen's hands moved toward the steel control panel. She rested her fingers on the forward handle. Her eyes narrowed with a cruel satisfaction. "You'll learn not to break rules in this community," she said, her voice cold and sharp. "This neighborhood needs order." She pushed the handle. The machine rumbled forward slowly but powerfully. My wife screamed, "Karen, stop!" But Karen raised her voice above the noise. "You should have taught her better." The machine creeped forward, rolling over the first patch of gravel with a heavy rumbling thud. The ground trembled beneath it. My daughter shrieked, "Dad! Please! Where are you?" Her voice cut straight into the air, desperate and terrified. Inside the house, that scream finally reached me. I froze for half a second, the kind of freeze that happens when your brain doesn't want to believe what your ears are hearing. Then instinct took over. I ran from the hallway, slammed open the back door, and bolted across the yard. My wife saw me and shouted, "Hurry, please, she's starting the machine." Karen leaned forward, gripping the handles with both hands, her eyes fixed on the tree as if she didn't even notice me approaching. My daughter saw me too, saw the terror on my face, and cried even harder. "Dad! Dad, please!" I sprinted as fast as I ever had in my life, faster than I thought my legs could move. My heart pounded with so much force it felt like it was shaking my ribs. My breath burned in my throat as I raced toward the tree, toward my daughter, toward the nightmare unfolding in front of me. Karen still didn't turn around. She still didn't know I was watching. She still didn't understand the magnitude of what she was doing. She still didn't know who she was threatening. My daughter sobbed with every breath she could manage. "Dad, help, please help." And as I crossed the last few yards, as the machine lumbered forward, as the sunlight glared off my badge, Karen was moments away from discovering the truth. The girl she tied to that tree, the child she terrified, the child she threatened with a road roller, was the police chief's daughter, and I was almost there. The road roller's engine thundered like an angry beast waking from a long sleep. The air vibrated with its deep mechanical growl, and the ground beneath my feet trembled as if warning me of the danger rushing toward my daughter. Karen leaned over the control panel, her eyes locked on the tree like she had planned this moment for years. The machine moved forward by inches at first, slow, heavy, frighteningly deliberate. The giant steel drum rotated with a low grinding sound that sent shivers through everyone who heard it. Dust rose beneath its weight, drifting into the sunlight like smoke from a fire. My daughter's screams grew sharper. "Dad, help me! She's coming!" Every instinct screamed inside my chest. Every muscle tightened. Every second stretched longer than the last. I sprinted harder, feeling adrenaline blast through my body. The world around me blurred, the houses, the fences, the sidewalks, all fading behind a wall of panic and urgency. The only thing I could see clearly was my daughter, shaking violently against the tree, her arms tied so tightly the rope left red marks around her wrists. My wife stood beside her, desperately trying to shield her with her own body, but Karen kept the machine aimed straight toward them as if nothing could stop her. "Karen, stop!" my wife screamed. "She's a little girl. What is wrong with you?" But Karen didn't respond. Not even a flinch. Her hands pressed down on the metal levers more firmly, her jaw clenched with wild determination. "You people think you can ignore my rules," she yelled over the roaring engine. "Not anymore. I warned you." Her voice carried a twisted pride, like she believed she was doing the entire neighborhood a favor. The roller gained more momentum, its weight crushing small branches and pebbles in its path. Every foot it traveled made my daughter's cries grow sharper, higher, more desperate. "Dad, please hurry!" Her words echoed across the neighborhood. From behind curtains and blinds, dozens of eyes watched in silent horror. But no one moved. No one dared challenge Karen. Fear had kept them silent for years, and today it was costing them all the ability to do the right thing. I pushed through the final stretch of lawn, legs burning, breath shaking. My badge slapped against my hip as I ran, catching the sunlight like a warning Karen refused to see. My wife turned toward me, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Hurry!" she cried. She started the machine. "I'm coming!" I yelled, forcing myself faster. The machine let out another deep rumble. The steel drum rolled over a fallen branch, flattening it instantly. The snapping echo made my daughter scream even louder. Karen barely glanced at her. Instead, she raised her voice again. "This is what happens when parents let their children break the rules. The HOA must stay in control." Her voice cracked with intensity, her obsession boiling over into something dangerous, something far beyond normal anger. "You're out of your mind," my wife shouted. "She's a child." Karen ignored her and leaned her weight into the controls, pushing the machine faster. The road roller crept forward with a terrifying sense of purpose, less than 20 feet from the base of the tree where my daughter stood tied and trembling. I reached the edge of the driveway. The sound of the engine drowned everything else out. My pulse synced with the rumbling, each beat a punch against my ribs. I roared, "Stop the machine now!" Karen turned her head just slightly, just enough to see me running straight toward her. But instead of stopping, she smirked. "You think you can intimidate me?" she shouted. "You're too late." My daughter sobbed violently. "Dad, please don't let her." The roller was now close enough that I could see the heat waves rising from its metal surface. Its shadow stretched long across the yard, crawling toward my daughter like a giant hand. My wife backed closer to the tree, spreading her arms protectively in front of our child. "Don't come closer, Karen," she screamed. "If you move that machine another inch—" Karen cut her off. "You don't tell me what to do. I run this neighborhood." She pressed her palm firmly onto the forward lever again. The engine revved louder. The machine surged a little closer. I felt a surge of rage explode inside me. "Karen, enough!" I yelled. "Stop now!" Finally, Karen's head snapped fully toward me. Her eyes locked on my belt, the badge. Her expression changed instantly. The arrogant smirk disappeared. Her eyes widened. Her hands hesitated on the controls. The truth hit her like a slap. But before she could speak, the machine jerked forward again from its own momentum, closing the gap even more. My daughter shrieked, "Dad, please!" I didn't stop running. I jumped the last flower bed, vaulted over the fallen rake, and rushed toward the machine with every ounce of strength I had left. "Karen!" I shouted through clenched teeth. "If you don't stop that machine this second—" She tried to compose herself, her voice suddenly shaking. I didn't realize." "It doesn't matter what you realized," I snapped. "Stop the machine." She hesitated for the first time, truly hesitated. The machine rumbled forward just a few more feet before she finally pulled back on the controls. The heavy drum slowed, grinding against loose gravel until it came to a full stop. Silence didn't come, not really. The engine still idled loudly, vibrating through the ground, but the danger paused. Just barely. My daughter sobbed against the tree. My wife collapsed beside her, tears in her eyes, whispering, "It's okay. Daddy's here. Hold on." I took a deep breath, trying to steady the fury inside me as I approached Karen directly. Her face was pale now. Fear replaced all her earlier anger. You didn't tell me you were—" I cut her off with a low, icy voice that made her swallow hard. "You tied my daughter to a tree. You chased her with a construction machine. You terrified her." She exhaled shakily. "I was enforcing the rules." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You were abusing your power." Karen froze, unable to speak. Because now— She knew. She had threatened the wrong family. She had crossed a line she could never uncross. She had endangered the daughter of the police chief. And I wasn't finished with her yet. Karen stood frozen on top of the road roller, her hands stiff on the controls, her body trembling as the reality of the situation began to crush her confidence. The rigid mask she had worn all morning, arrogance, fury, authority, slowly cracked as she watched me step closer with a steady, controlled walk. Her eyes darted between my face and the badge clipped to my belt. I could almost see the moment her mind put the pieces together. The moment she realized just how deeply she had crossed the line. You're the—" Her voice faltered. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't scream. I didn't need to. "Yes," I said, each word sharp and heavy. "I'm the police chief." My daughter sobbed behind me. My wife stayed kneeling beside her, still trembling with panic, one hand rubbing our daughter's back to comfort her. Tears streaked down both of their faces, and the sight fueled the storm boiling in my chest. Karen swallowed hard, her voice shook. I didn't know, she didn't tell me. She's a child, I said, stepping closer, not a suspect, not a criminal. And definitely not someone you were allowed to touch. My voice cut through the lingering noise of the idling engine. It wasn't loud, but it didn't need to be. Karen's confidence evaporated with every inch I closed. You tied her to a tree, I said slowly. You dragged her across the street. You frightened her. You threatened her with a construction machine. Do you understand how serious that is? Karen stammered. I was enforcing the HOA rules. You weren't enforcing anything, I snapped, my tone colder now. You were abusing your power. You endangered a child. My child. Her shoulders stiffened, but she didn't respond. The road roller's engine was still running, its low rumble vibrating through the ground like a heartbeat. I leaned forward slightly toward the control panel. Turn it off, I said. Karen hesitated, glancing at the switch like touching it might burn her. Turn IT off, I repeated. Her hands trembled as she flipped the ignition. The machine groaned to silence. The sudden quiet made everything feel sharper, heavier. My daughter's soft cries, my wife's shaking breaths, the tense air around us. I stepped closer and pointed toward the ground. Get off the machine. Karen slowly climbed down, her legs stiff, her movements clumsy. The same woman who had marched through the neighborhood with confidence and superiority now looked small, unbalanced, and terrified. She stood in front of me, arms crossed tightly, hands trembling, eyes unable to meet mine. You don't understand, she said weakly. The neighborhood is out of control. Kids draw on the sidewalks. People leave trash cans out too long. There has to be structure. I stared at her with disbelief. Structure? I said. You tied an 8-year-old girl to a tree. You started a construction machine aimed at her. That's not structure, Karen. That's violence disguised as rules. She looked down, her breathing shallow. I just wanted order. You wanted power, I corrected. You wanted control. And today you took it way too far. A small crowd had formed behind the blinds of several houses. I could see the silhouettes of neighbors peeking out, disturbed, horrified, but finally witnessing what they should have confronted long ago. Karen finally lifted her head, eyes wide with fear. Are you going to arrest me? I didn't answer immediately. I turned toward the tree first. My daughter still trembled against the bark, her wrists raw from the rope. I knelt in front of her, carefully working the knots loose. My hands were steady, but my heart wasn't. As soon as the rope fell away, she threw her arms around me with a broken cry. Dad, I thought you weren't coming. I hugged her tightly, my hand resting on the back of her head, my throat tightening with emotion. I'm here, I whispered. I'll always be here. My wife wrapped her arms around both of us, her voice trembling as she whispered, Thank God you got here. For a moment the world stopped. Just us, our family, holding on to each other in a moment we never expected to face. Then I stood up slowly. My daughter clung to my leg. My wife wiped her tears, still shaking. I walked back to Karen with a calm, controlled expression, the kind I wore on duty when dealing with dangerous situations. She stepped back slightly. I didn't realize, I just wanted... You wanted obedience, I said. But you didn't care who you hurt to get it. I raised my hand and motioned to my wife. Take her inside, I said softly. She needs water, rest, and safety. My wife nodded and led our daughter toward the house. I waited until the door closed behind them. Then I spoke. Karen, I said firmly, you are under investigation for endangering a minor, unlawful restraint and reckless behavior with heavy machinery. Her breathing quickened. Well, wait, please. I thought, this isn't about what you thought, I said. This is about what you did. I pulled out my radio. She panicked. No, please. I can fix this. I can apologize. I'll resign. I'll do anything. You already did enough, I replied. I pressed the call button. My voice was calm, controlled, professional. Unit 6 requesting immediate backup at Maplewood Lane. We have an HOA disturbance involving a minor. Notify child services and dispatch a patrol unit. Karen's mouth fell open. She stumbled backward, her voice shaking. You can't. I'm the HOA president. I make the decisions here. Not anymore, I said. The neighbors behind the windows finally understood. Karen had ruled the street with fear, but fear had just met something stronger, justice, and she still didn't understand the full truth. She didn't just threaten a random child. She threatened the police chief's daughter, and now she would face the consequences. The wail of police sirens broke through the neighborhood like a wave of cold air sweeping across warm pavement. Red and blue lights flashed against the houses, painting the quiet street with streaks of color. The neighbors, who had hidden behind curtains, finally stepped outside, whispers rising as squad cars pulled up from both ends of the lane. Karen stood in the middle of the yard, frozen like a statue carved from fear. Her hands hung limply at her sides, her once powerful posture wilted, all the arrogance drained from her face. The woman who had screamed about rules all morning now couldn't even lift her eyes. 2 officers approached her, hands resting near their belts, not because they saw her as a threat, but because they recognized an unstable person who had already proven capable of escalating things beyond reason. "Ma'am," the first officer said calmly, "step away from the machine." Karen swallowed hard. "Officer, this is all a misunderstanding. I was trying to—" "You endangered a child," he interrupted. "Do not speak unless asked." His tone cracked whatever pride Karen had left. She stepped back shakily, palms sweating, shoulders hunched. My daughter watched from inside the house through a window. Her face was still blotchy from crying, but when she saw the officers arrive, she pressed her small hand to the glass, as if trying to make sure everything was really over. My wife wrapped her arms around her, whispering comforting words. I stood between Karen and the tree, quietly observing. For years, she had bullied this neighborhood with her fake authority, threatening fines and consequences no one could verify. Now she stood trembling in front of real authority, and she was completely powerless. An officer spoke into his radio. "Dispatch, we have control of the scene. Suspect detained. Preparing for transport." Karen's voice cracked. "Suspect? You're calling me a suspect?" "I'm the HOA president. You're a danger," the officer replied simply. "And the title HOA president means nothing here." The neighborhood fell into a hush. Karen blinked rapidly, panic rising. She took a shaky step toward me. "You can tell them to stop," she pleaded. "You're the police chief. You can make this go away. Tell them it's a mistake." I stared at her for a long moment. She had terrorized families for years. She had controlled this street like it belonged to her. She had tied my innocent daughter to a tree. She had used a machine to scare her, maybe worse, and she thought she could just walk away. "I can't make this go away," I said softly. "You did this. You made your choices. Now you'll face the consequences." Karen's lips trembled. "Please, I didn't know she was your daughter." I stepped closer until I stood inches away. "You shouldn't need to know who a child belongs to," I said. "You only needed to be human." Her tears finally fell. The officers took her by the arms, turning her toward the patrol car. As they led her away, murmurs ran through the crowd. Some shocked, some relieved, others whispering that this day had been a long time coming. Karen tried one last time to resist. "This isn't fair. I did nothing wrong. I was enforcing my authority." One officer answered bluntly, "You don't have the authority to tie a child to anything." They opened the back door and gently pushed her inside. Her face pressed against the window for a moment. The same woman who once barked orders at everyone now stared helplessly at the world she no longer controlled. The door shut with a heavy thud. And just like that, Karen's reign over the neighborhood was over. The sirens faded as the patrol car began rolling away. Karen's terrified face slowly disappeared behind the line of parked cars until the vehicle turned the corner and vanished. Silence settled again. My wife stepped out holding our daughter wrapped in a blanket. My daughter's small arms clung tightly to her mother's neck. Her eyes found mine instantly. I walked toward her and knelt down. She leaned forward, throwing her arms around my shoulders. "Daddy," she whispered shakily, "I thought you wouldn't come in time." "I will always come," I said softly, pulling her close. "No matter what. I'll always find you." She cried again, but this time the tears weren't from fear. They were from relief. Neighbors slowly approached, unsure whether they should speak. Finally, Mrs. Green, the older woman who lived 2 houses down, stepped forward. "Chief," she said gently, We're so sorry. We should have stopped her a long time ago." Another neighbor nodded. She scared all of us. She made everyone afraid to stand against her. It won't be like that anymore, I said calmly. Not after today. A few people bowed their heads. Others offered apologetic smiles. A neighborhood that had lived under years of quiet fear finally felt something new, freedom. The ambulance arrived a moment later to evaluate my daughter. The paramedics checked her wrists, her breathing, her emotional state. Thankfully, there were no physical injuries, just the psychological shock of the event. While the paramedics worked, I stepped aside with one of my officers. "We'll file charges, Chief," he said. "Reckless endangerment, unlawful restraint, child endangerment, maybe even attempted harm with machinery." "Good," I answered. "Let her face everything she earned." The officer nodded and joined his team. The paramedics gave my daughter the all clear. She held my hand tightly as we walked back into the house. Inside, the air felt warmer, safer, calmer. My daughter sat on the couch wrapped in her blanket. Her small voice broke the quiet. "Dad, is she coming back?" I shook my head. "No, not ever again." A tiny smile appeared. Small, fragile, but hopeful. Later that evening, the sun dipped behind the rooftops, painting the sky orange and purple. The oak tree's leaves rustled gently, no longer carrying the weight of fear. My wife placed a hand over mine. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving her." I kissed my daughter's forehead. "For saving both of you," I replied. Outside, the neighborhood was finally quiet. Birds returned to the fences. Children played in yards again. Parents let out breaths they didn't know they'd been holding. Karen's house sat dark and empty, her rule gone, her influence erased. Peace had returned, safety had returned. The neighborhood had its freedom back. And as I watched my daughter drift to sleep, one truth settled deep in my heart. Karen made the worst mistake of her life when she targeted the wrong family. But she made an unforgivable mistake when she targeted my daughter. Justice wasn't just served today, it won.